Before we dive into this interview with Joe Bressler, a talented filmmaker and director from New York,
he calls me back and he's like, Joe, they absolutely hate it. They're like, there's no way they would ever do anything with this.
I wanted to share why this conversation is so meaningful to me personally, and hopefully to you as well.
Go make a bunch of money and then decide not to do stuff for, we can take time off a lot more easily and have more freedom to do so.
Talking to Joe was incredibly inspiring. Our conversation touched on the intersections of craft, art, and filmmaking.
You're never gonna just be able to walk into a shoot and be on autopilot.
As well as the business side of things.
Because I didn't get paid to do anything for many years after that.
It helped me see how these elements can come together to create something truly meaningful.
What I do have control over is just making my own stuff and continuing to share my experiences on YouTube.
When I recorded this interview over a month ago, I was in the midst of a challenging transition. I had just relocated to Bangkok, a city where I had no local network and only a few new contacts to rely on. I felt pretty lost, unsure of how to build a meaningful career in this new environment. With no commercial jobs lined up and turning down offers from back home, I was contemplating a big shift, whether to go all in on YouTube and focus on creative entrepreneurship full time. Joe's insights and experiences resonated with my own thoughts, and after a month of introspection, I decided to take the leap and commit fully to this new path. I wanted to share this personal story with you before the interview because it adds a bit of context to our conversation, and I believe it might resonate with those of you facing similar challenges. My hope is that this conversation inspires and motivates you to pursue whatever path feels right to you, and if you find value in this video, please share it with someone who might benefit from watching it. And now, please enjoy the interview. So yeah, it's been pretty challenging, to be honest with you. Yes, I was gonna ask you, because the last time we talked, we haven't really gone into your story of how you started out your career. Mm-hmm. I really want to know everything about it. How did you come up with that idea that you wanted to be a filmmaker, and how it all started? Who brought you in? What was your first project like?
Yeah, so I'm from Cleveland, Ohio, which is, a 7-hour drive away from New York City where I live now. And I started off by shooting my friends skateboarding. I shot skateboarding for 15 years or something, just literally following my friends on a skateboard with a camera, making skate videos. And that was my introduction to just knowing I liked capturing images and then really enjoying putting videos together and having them feel a certain way and have a certain visual direction. And then I moved to New York. I went to school here, and
what
then
year
after
was it?
School, I moved here in 2008. And then I went to school from 2008 to 2012. And after school, I worked in a restaurant for a little bit, and I started picking up jobs doing videography jobs, shooting events or parties or little interviews. And then that led into doing branded content, which branded content in 2015, 2016 was huge, where there'd be a lot more opportunities to do 10-minute mini doc films that were sponsored by a shoe brand or something with a media outlet. So I got really into that and had a really wonderful time kind of learning about filmmaking even more, while also traveling the world and just being 26 and not having any expenses. So it was I wasn't making a ton of money at the time, but it felt like it, and I was able to buy camera equipment, and I was this is awesome.
What was your first paycheck?
Oh, my first paycheck, I shot a skate video for Supreme, and I got $800 when I was 18.
That's pretty impressive.
So
the first one.
that was pretty sick. I was that felt like $1 million to me. But normally, a lot of stuff I would do after that would be come shoot an event, edit a little recap, and make $200, and then I'd wait by the mailbox and be praying for the check to come so I could pay rent. And yeah, did that for years. And then branded content came along, and it was a little bit more money and travel opportunities and a little bit more opportunity to tell stories. And that was when I was oh, this is really cool. I'm actually starting to make some things that I'm psyched on and would want to share with people. from like as like a storyteller and filmmaker, and not necessarily like shooting like skateboarding or like whatever. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's just a different thing for me to be doing.
I'm just really curious on the time scale. Like, how long did it take you from, say, first picking up a camera and making your own video, that moment, to leading up to a moment where you first got that first paycheck? Like, how many years did it take you?
I first picked up a camera probably when I was like 11 or 12, so I guess like 6 years. But I think like the first check was kind of a fluke, honestly, because I didn't get paid to do anything for many years after that, just because I was in school or like it just wasn't a consistent thing. And it was also like when I like actually started working was when like there was like the 5D had just come out, and then the GH2, and like it was like more like it was simpler to just make something that like looked okay than it had ever been in the years leading up to that. Like there were cameras like then that you could afford, that you could like shoot something professional looking and not have to like shoot on film or something. So like it just with that like access, I was able to actually start working like independently, and like there were like smaller jobs now available that like weren't really there as much prior to that. So yeah, basically was doing branded content stuff for a while, freelance, and then I started working with my friend New York Nico a lot on like commercial stuff that he was directing, as well as we did.
I think not a lot of people probably know that New York Nico is a director too.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, he started off like he had an Instagram. He had an Instagram before New York Nico called Know Your City, and it was like similar things where it was like documentaries on like local people, but they were just on Instagram, and they were more like I guess like formal like short documentary kind of things, and each post was like focused on a person. And then he started New York Nico, and and he was also like a commercial director. Like we were all pretty new to our careers, but he was doing commercials and stuff for some brands as well. So I was like one of the cinematographers that he would work on like the more doc style stuff, I guess. And we were roommates, and we shot 3 shorts, short documentaries together in like 2018, 2019. And then every once in a while we still collaborate on like commercials. Like we shot a commercial in last year for the New York Knicks. So he'll do like these commercials that are like, about like that feature like New Yorkers and are like really strongly like tied to his niche.
I think you had that the Vimeo staff pick for one of them, right? At least one of them.
All of
Or
them,
a few
baby.
of them.
Come on.
All of them, all right.
Yeah. I mean, they were just really like he's like so good at everybody knows this, but he's so good at finding like amazing people to showcase. So it's just like literally like those are like the easiest Vimeo staff picks we could have ever, or I could have ever been involved with. Like I just lived with him, and I rolled out of bed and picked up my camera in the living room, and we went out. We shot them in a day, and that was like it. Yeah, I loved working on those projects, and I loved short form documentaries specifically, and I got really good at like shooting that. And since then I've done some more long form. I've shot last summer I shot like a TV show with my friend Larkin, directed by Danny Lee, that was on PBS, called The Expressway. And that was like 4 like hour long TV shows. So it was like more proper like long takes, like verite, like doc shooting. And
Yeah.
doc is great, but I sort of like parallel have been like moving towards doing more directing, and in 2020 I started getting more commercial directing opportunities, and then like started to really fall in love with that, because like I could see my own limitations as a cinematographer, like getting to the images I wanted to make with the budgets I had and the resources I had. And then like once I started working more with a team, I could really like get the images that I had on my head like onto wax, and I was like, this is cool. Like this is like definitely what I want to do, and I could like make like the things that like I had visualized that were a little bit different, or just kind of have my own voice. So yeah, I kind of like split off into doing long form doc for a sec and then commercial directing, and now I'm like, I don't know, I don't have any doc projects in the works right now. So, and I've been doing more commercial directing, and especially this year, and also now YouTube videos, and also using YouTube as a way to make like experimental short projects, that don't really have like a client or a place other than me just making something that I want to and putting it out.
At least branded doc work has a little bit of leeway for you to experiment with your own voice and just put that little bit of your sauce, on top of it. Because like whenever it's a strict commercial in the commercial world, you have so many like limitations. You're stuck to a storyboard. You can't really do all that much of improvisation on set.
Yeah.
Whenever I watch your portfolio, it feels like a lot of it feels real. Like one of the commercials you made for Converse. I mean, it's clear it's a comedy. It's clear it's all set up, but it feels very real within that world, within that cinematic language.
I know all those people in the commercial like really well too, and like everybody that worked on the commercial they're all like friends of mine. It like makes sense in a way that like it feels like there's that connection there, because like I've known all of those people for a long time,
and the skateboarding background makes sense too now, because I didn't know that.
Yeah, like you can't really operate in that niche without having a background in skateboarding, because it's like stepping onto like if you like walk into a group of skateboarders, like walking onto a film set and being like new, and there's so much like lingo and stuff and terminology being thrown around in a way of speaking that like it's hard to like jump into that stream. So like you would be able to tell if somebody like wasn't a part of that world and directing something like that, because there's also like this fine line of like what's funny to a skater, what's like cheesy. Like it could really easily come across as super whack to like the community if like it wasn't that story wasn't like handled a certain way. So I appreciate it. I also feel like I'm like okay, I'm so in that world. I'm like sort of interested in like expanding a little bit into other categories, because I'm like I so naturally like understand that world.
No, it is a very interesting standpoint, because the other day I was talking to another director here, and we were watching a series of music videos and watching it and analyzing it. Some of it is UK rap, and especially if you're familiar with Dave and Central C and some of those rappers from UK, their music videos are, you can't imagine me making such music videos, or somebody from the outside making these types of music videos. They're very raw, and you understand that people making these music videos are part of that world, and they're very natural at being just chill with the guys. Because with artists that aren't like not very structured people, they would turn up high or turn up like under influence. And not on time, not showing up on time, and they don't follow schedule, don't follow. Yeah, so like very rock star people.
Yeah.
And in order to comprehend that and play that into your strength, you have to be like kind of on the same page with them. So basically, from that.
Well, you have to be as a director anyway, right? Like somebody that can relate to people and work with people and like connect with people. So, like. Yeah, I could see like I can kind of remember like points in my life where like I would get like really frustrated if like people were like late or like not taking things seriously, but then you just kind of have to realize like, I mean obviously like if people show up like 8 hours late, that's just super frustrating, but like I think like being flexible and like open to like nothing ever goes perfectly right on a film set, no matter how much you prepare. So like being open and fun and like not being such a like, I don't know, not being lame. I guess if you're like you're there it's kind of like a party, like you're a host, you're hosting a party, you've got all these guests, those are your talent. You've got your like people that are working the party, that's your crew, and you just want to make sure everybody is like happy and like we're all just vying towards like a result that we're like that we set out to get. And like it's never going to be like always like a straight route to get there. So that's part of it. Like if you're working with talent that are like late or whatever, like you just got to be like fun and like try to figure it out and make it work.
No, like yeah, thinking of it that way is a very interesting perspective. You're hosting a party. That's a good. I'll take note.
It is. It's like the pre-pro is like planning and then because like I always I'm definitely somebody that plans a lot for sure for shoots. I really like to like walk in and be like just executing a plan, which is like most people I think do. Or most people that like are successful with making good stuff, or at least from my point of view. So I like to plan pretty extensively going in, but you're never gonna just be able to walk into a shoot and be on autopilot. There's always gonna be some like adapting that you have to do. So
like it's not you can't always follow the same structure from job to job. It's always every job feels like like first time doing it, honestly. Like a lot of the times I've encountered myself in that situation where it seemingly feels like it's the same type of job you did last month, but you step on set and it's all different, like all new set of problems, all new, I don't know, like challenges that you have to kind of battle.
Well, that's the thing with commercial directing, right? It's like you're solving someone else's problems, so it's always going to be different. And like every client has its own kind of like way that they like to solve problems. And
right. Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. It's like you know, like that's the cool thing about like being able to make passion projects and make things for YouTube is like I just discovered YouTube, I guess, like for something that like I could put like a 30-second video that I made like with a model and a group of friends, and it could just be like, oh, it gets like 30,000 views. Like I used to think like it would have to be like you throw something on Instagram and get likes from the people that follow you. I didn't really realize like now YouTube is like it's the perfect place for that. And there's like, I guess the point I'm trying to make is like you can do that on your own and do whatever you want, but for commercial jobs it has become more and more apparent to me that like you really do have to like very, very carefully listen to what the problem is and first solve the problem, and then you are being hired to like embellish it and like embellish the project and make it look cool, but the problem that you're solving is at the core. And so if you're trying to get all of your creative satisfaction from directing commercials, like you're gonna go crazy. So
yeah, 100%. Amen. That is the most valuable piece of advice, I think. Well, from my personal experience, like a lot of the new directors, newbies, don't appreciate commercial jobs for what it is. Like they find this to be an outlet for their creative endeavors. And
it's not.
know. It's like it's not, right? You're a gun for hire, you're solving somebody else's problem. You're not there to flex your creative muscles all that much. Well, maybe a bit of that too, but that's not the primary reason.
A little bit. I think it's important too, because I had times where like I wouldn't go as far as I could have because I wanted to be like safe. And I think if you're like really carefully listening to the problem and solving the problem, and you make sure that that's your first priority, like the other reason why they're hiring you is like they are hiring you to make something cool. Like if they weren't, then like they would just do it. So
right.
It is important to be a little bit emotionally invested in the project, I think, but like it can't be the first priority to make some like sick thing for your reel, because then you're gonna butt heads and it's not gonna work out.
Because it's also, I guess it's the question of what you're optimizing for. Like, are you optimizing to problem solve, or are you optimizing to just make a banger for your own commercial portfolio or whatever?
Yeah, and you might get the project done and achieve that, and then like you don't get hired again because they're like, this didn't really like solve the problem.
I first saw your channel about a year ago when you posted a series of these fashion films that you've done. So there was quite a few videos that were fashion related, but not a ton of breakdowns or tutorials. 9 months later, I saw that first video that you did a proper breakdown, I was like, oh, this is good. This is actually very valuable piece of information that is very needed on YouTube, because like there's a lot of gear reviews, there's a lot of like people
Like
the niche.
technical, like
Well,
sort of
there's
consumer
yeah,
for.
there's definitely that, and there's another subset of people that are like targeting basically vloggers and like entertaining content. And there's
Right.
not a ton of like specific information for up and coming directors
Right.
and people that are like into the so-called serious filmmaking, which I hate to call it that, but like there's a bit of a division, and you can feel it, and it's
Yes.
definitely there.
Yeah.
You like started being more consistent lately, and I really want to know how that complements your primary career of being a commercial director.
I always felt like there's something missing. I would get so excited when I would get an inquiry or like get a job to do like a commercial or a project I was excited about. But in between doing those projects, I would kind of just be sitting there and be like, I really wish there was something I could be doing that would like feel productive or like be valuable to someone or like be creatively fulfilling for me. So when my rep first reached out to me a couple of years ago, we had a first conversation about like what my goals were and what I wanted to do. And I had like less directing work then, and they said like that I should just make more stuff on my own, which I'd always like kind of thought about doing, but no one had ever really like given me. It was weird. It was almost like they like gave me permission to like do something I like already wanted to do, which was like make those fashion films that you were referencing before that I'd first put on my YouTube. So I was really excited to do those, and I shot two fashion films to start, like back to back, like one Saturday, one Sunday, one weekend. That was like the first time I was like, okay, like I can like Nico and I did the documentaries, but I still had to like wait for Nico to like provide like the subject and like the like route to like making that work. And this was the first time I like sort of just did it on my own. So I needed something in between commercial jobs for sure to like be creatively fulfilling, and I really wanted to just do things that like I didn't feel like I would be like allowed to do on commercial jobs, which would be like shooting on film or like shooting like really wide weird angles with like super edgy like styling or just like stuff that like I just had in my head that I thought would be cool, that I wasn't getting the assignments to do. So doing those was like the first step towards YouTube because I was just starting to make like work on my own, and putting those out, like people like seemed to really like them, and it was really encouraging, and they were getting views, and it just was like I just understood then that like I could put things on YouTube and like they would actually get seen, because before that there wasn't really as much of a like way like before that I didn't understand that YouTube was like Instagram for videos, which sounds dumb because like like it's obviously what it is, but I didn't really understand that like strangers would find the content so easily and like watch it and engage with it. I started to see the power of what YouTube could be like for me, I guess. And I'd always engaged a lot with YouTube. Like I watched a lot of videos, and I was like always kind of interested in doing it, but I just didn't know if I would feel comfortable like being on camera or anything like that. So I didn't record videos for a while after making those first two fashion films. Then I made four more fashion films that year, a music video, and um, a music video for my girlfriend, and then a spec, like big spec mayonnaise commercial, which hopefully we'll get to talk about that more later too. I just started doing these projects and then realizing like, oh, they're like people are seeing them. Like this is I can actually like make stuff and put it out. It was just a fundamental like aha moment that YouTube could do that for me, and it was like the thing that I wanted, where I could like get eyes on my work and make my own stuff without an assignment. So when we did the mayonnaise commercial spec, I decided that that was the time that like I wanted to have like a BTS videographer on set and like film everything that we did from start to finish. and I made one video about that, just kind of showed the whole day, the whole 2 days that we shot that, and it did like okay. Honestly, it didn't really do that great, and I was kind of like, whatever. And then I decided to give it another go when I had some time later this year, like a couple months ago, just breaking down the stuff I'd already shot and just like really going for it, and they went pretty well. Like people seemed to like them, and it encouraged me to just be more consistent with posting. And like I think for me, I never really, I think we all have like imposter syndrome sometimes, where we don't really know if like what we have to say about our process is really adding value or not. Like I'm interested in technical filmmaking stuff, but I'm not the person that's going to be able to like, like I made a video about Leica R lenses because I just love Leica R lenses, and I'm like, people are posting comments like, oh, like I found this set like that was like this serial number to this serial number. I'm like, I like literally don't care about that. Like I just love like the feeling that those lenses give me and talking about like using them. So I don't know. There's so many approaches to like talking about your filmmaking process, and it's such a there's so there's just so many ways to look at it. So I was a little like unsure if I had anything to offer, but then sort of started to realize like it's just like people want to watch filmmaking content to feel like they're on set. Like I know that I do.
Yeah.
Like I watch people's BTS because I'm just like, oh, I just like wish I was doing that right now. And you kind of like live vicariously through their like BTS or whatever. And so like it's just good to put your experiences like out there so that like people can, because like in order to learn filmmaking, you kind of have to have the experiences yourself. But I think if you're watching other people go through it too, you can kind of like pick things up as well, and it's entertaining if you're into that, like watching BTS. So
I've actually started seeing a lot of videos. If you look up spec commercial on YouTube, there's going to be a ton of videos nowadays. And they're all relatively new videos, like 4 months, 6 months, 8 months old. So this past year has been the key search term, spec commercial, has been a very, very popular one this year. Mm-hmm. And it's signaling to me that there's a bit of a itch for people to like really get a sense of what it feels like to be a filmmaker on set. And it is inspiring for somebody who doesn't have the means to just go out there and make a real commercial for a real brand. Maybe they will feel inspired to get out there with their own camera and with their friends as a crew and make their own commercials or short films or whatever. And so I understand the idea of it because I fully support it, because I've done it, and it really has helped my own career a lot. And so whenever people approach me and ask me like, what should I do? I always tell them, go out there and make a spec commercial. However, for somebody who has not done that, I feel like it might be overwhelming because there's like this whole movement with spec commercials has been, again, so popular lately. I can sense that there are probably people out there thinking, what is this weird trend? Like, am I supposed to be doing this? Is this even valuable to my career? Like, this feels too saturated, and like brands will never give a fuck about this anyway. So what do you think about that? Is this not too oversimplified approach for new filmmakers?
I have a really funny story about my spec commercial that I think I should share, because like I learned a lot. That was I made this mayonnaise spec commercial, and I was like, this is like for Kewpie mayonnaise because I love Kewpie mayonnaise. And I like before I made that, I was thinking like I can do whatever I want because it's a spec commercial and it's not for the brand. And all the other work I'd made before was kind of like, I guess it could be a spec commercial, but it's really just like little fashion films that like allow me to like try out new techniques that I want to try, or like, whatever. So this one I made it like it was like a real spec commercial for them. And I like basically I did whatever I wanted. I made it super like bizarre and wacky and a super like comedic type of spot. It's kind of similar to the Converse thing, I think. But I made it, I put it out there, and I was like sending it to like popular food YouTubers because I thought like if they see it and I can contact them and see if they'll like talk about it and like maybe it'll go viral or something. And I sent it to like 10 people, and one of them got back to me right away, and they were like, "This is amazing! Like this is so funny. I love this. I want to react to it. I think this is great." And he's like, "I'm a Koopy brand ambassador, so I actually have a connection to the brand." And he's like, I'm gonna show it to them like in a couple days." And I was like, "Okay, cool." So then like a couple days go by, and he calls me back, and he's like, "Joe, they absolutely hate it." They're like, "There's no way they would ever do anything with this." And so we had a laugh about it, and I was like, you know what? Like, I just learned the best lesson you can learn about spec commercials, which is like, it's not like free reign to do whatever you want, really, because like if you want to make a spec commercial for a brand, like, why would you make it something that they would never use? It doesn't make any sense. Like, I think people should make, and I've heard other people say the same thing, like, I think people should make like films that they want to make that are like maybe represent like the direction of commercials that they would want to do. Like, I see a lot of like really cool short films on YouTube that people make that are like 30-second sort of like just visual like commercially things that don't have a brand behind them, where they kind of like showcase like a lighting effect or like some sort of like shot idea that they have, or just some like nugget of an idea that could be like represent their work or something. Like I could see like brands seeing that and being like, "Oh, that person, like this idea that they're getting across in this story would work really well for a commercial." Like, I think it's more about like showing that you can do a variety of things, and really like when like agencies are hiring directors for a commercial or looking for directors to put forward for a commercial, they really want to see that you've done like the exact thing that like the exact problem that they need to solve. So like, I think just making like more volume of work, not really worrying about like targeting a brand, and just like trying different things and developing a voice is like probably the better way to go. And now it's so cool because like you can buy like an FX30 or some like cheap camera and like literally just do it like really easily. I mean, I say that and then I end up like doing these things that like I have like 12 people with me on the shoot. But like, I think for like people that are just starting out, it's like easy to, with the lighting, the cheaper lighting that we have access to and the cameras, like to just like make something at home and like kind of get an idea across that you can like execute something. So I don't know. I guess like I wouldn't recommend that people like go make like a spec ad for a brand and pour all this like energy into it necessarily, but I definitely think like making things that could illustrate your ability to execute a commercial idea or solve a problem like is important.
Right. And also I would add to that, because a lot of the people like slapping a Nike logo or something like a large brand name that everybody knows on a video that doesn't look to par. And that where I guess a lot of the frustration comes, because I had an interview like this with Ian Bonds-Joel, and he was like, it doesn't make any sense to him at all. And so for him and his production company nowadays, it's a lot more important to see a voice in a director. Like, they never pay attention to what brands a certain director made a commercial for. So I think for anyone who is looking to maybe get some money out of the pocket and do their own stuff, maybe the goal shouldn't necessarily be like to slap a logo on your work. Like, it's got to be figuring out what you like shooting, figuring out what you're good at.
People think it's like weird to like make like to make like a 30-second like running montage or something where you try out like different shots and like not put a logo at the end of it, but it's like totally okay. And
exactly.
Like, I think it's also cool to like do what we did for the mayonnaise commercial and make something like really outrageous, but like just make it for yourself, you know, like you're not the likelihood of you like making like a Nike spec commercial and then Nike seeing that commercial and like hiring you to make that exact thing seems like unlikely, because like they have their own set of problems, and that goes back to what we were talking about before, that like they have their own things that they're doing that like you need to like you would have to have, you know, done that exact thing before. So like I think it's just better, like I agree with him that like it's better to find your voice and sort of just be making things that like you want to make, and like eventually that'll line up with somebody's problem that they have if you're consistent.
So basically your website right now, your portfolio website, is divided into two parts. One is a directing portfolio, and the other one is a cinematographer portfolio. So, and you've also mentioned that you are signed now with an agent. And is it not confusing to them, to your rep, or to anybody that they're trying to sell you to, that you have like both, that you have established yourself as a cinematographer and a director?
The thing is, I mean, like we kind of, it seems fine so far, honestly, and a lot of times like it seems like it opens more doors in a weird way, because it's like if I wanted to do a project that was like I don't know, if there was something that needed me to do both things at the same time, then I would be open to doing jobs like that too. I think as a whole, like I don't want to like say this for sure or not, but like I feel like I'm moving towards directing more exclusively, but I still do take the odd DP job. I've only done one this year. I shot a seltzer commercial, and that was the only DPing job that I've had. But I've had some stuff where I've done both, and like I'd prefer to only direct, but sometimes I need to take those jobs where I do both too. So it's kind of good for now. I think eventually we'll probably just like move over to only directing, but I haven't. It's never been like a problem. Like it's never been like. I think that weirdly, like I've been clear enough about like what I directed and what I shot that like I've never had anyone like confuse me for somebody that directed like one of Nico's things, for example, because like he's so well known. So it's been fine. I think like ultimately I'd like to delineate between the two like 100%, but I just kind of like am just beginning to be like only a director. So I don't know if I have an opinion on if it's confusing or not, but I guess like, you know, maybe ideally I would only focus on one, but I still love shooting for now. It works so far it works for me. I think like, again, this year I've really mostly been directing, and I think maybe like next year will be the year we shut it off for DPing. I don't really know. I do like also really appreciate being somebody who has DP'd as a director, how you can communicate with crew and like articulate what you want to see. It's so helpful, and so like you're never gonna be like, hey, that looks a little dark. Like, is you sure that's bright enough or anything like that? It's just like I feel like we're doing like a, you know, by going through the process of being a DP at some point, it's just like nice to like. I feel like I have more like of a strength as a director visually, you know, from having that experience. So I'm grateful for doing that too. So yeah, I think it just makes it easier to communicate with crew sometimes.
That is the case. For me, it was, I was coming from an editing background, so I was doing a lot of editing gigs for friends, for other directors too. And so whenever I would say and communicate the idea that I had this editing background, it would only make me a better candidate for a job.
Well, being an editor too before being a director is great, because you know how to shoot for the edit and like you can visualize. Yeah.
And it also sounds very safe for the people hiring too. Like it's not necessarily that you are much better now that you know how to edit, but it puts people at ease knowing that you know how to edit.
I love to shoot something and like you can edit it in like an hour after we shoot it. Like that's my goal, because otherwise I don't feel like I've really done my job well. Because like I'm delivering the raw materials I'm like delivering the editor their paints and paintbrushes to like put the thing together. So like I want it to be as organized and clear as possible. And that's like that's the sign of the success of a project to me, is like if it just like cuts together like perfectly without like minimal sort of like finding it.
Yeah, I agree. I also think that finding the direction in the edit is a bit of a
Oh
fail.
yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, some projects like I don't know. I just did a thing a few months ago where like it was very run and gun. We shot in Paris. Actually, I don't know if we should say who it's for. It's not out yet. Anyway, it was for somebody, and it was just something where like I had shots in mind, and I had like a not like necessarily a story, but like definitely like visuals I wanted to get across, and certain shot ideas I wanted to try and include in the piece. And like some projects like that are more like of a, I don't know, like montage kind of nature, with like they don't necessarily have an edit, and you don't necessarily, or sorry, they don't necessarily have a narrative per se. Like sometimes you do have to find those like a little bit, or especially like sometimes in fashion videos too, like you have to find like what's the best combination of like the look and the way that the model looks and the way that the background is and stuff like that. It can take like a little bit more time, but anything like narrative, I feel like it should just like slot in and work.
Hey filmmakers, before we dive back into this interview, I have something very special for you. I've created an email course, a free email course called 5 Mistakes Beginner Directors Make and How to Avoid Them. It's a 5-day email sequence. There's no upsell, no catch. My aim is purely to help you guys succeed, and you can opt in or opt out at any time you want. If that's interesting to you, go follow the link in the description. And now back to the interview. The majority of your work is happening in New York, is that right?
So I think like 50% of it is happening in New York nowadays. Like at least from the last couple of years, like I worked all summer last summer shooting the doc series for PBS, The Expressway, and that was all over America. And then like I just finished a commercial project in Paris. So yeah, I would say most of it is not necessarily in New York, but it kind of depends on, I guess, what's going on. It's I wouldn't say it's necessarily like mostly in New York. A lot of it is, and I'm glad I still live here, but a lot of it is our travel jobs.
Do you think that it's this perfect place to be starting your career, or is it not that? Or is there something else to it that we can see from far away?
I think it's a really good place to start your career, first of all, for sure. I think the goal, like for me, would be to be able to live anywhere and be able to work. You know, if the shoot is in New York or it's in London or like whatever. Like I would love to just be able to choose to live wherever I want. Like eventually, I think you need to establish yourself in a large market before you do that, because you need to be in front of people that are, like agencies or people that are making the decisions on who to hire, like for a while, before you're getting the kinds of opportunities to travel and go other places. I think it's probably hard for people to be in a smaller market and break into that. So I think that New York is an awesome place to get your career started, because there's so many ad agencies here. There's so many production companies here. There's so many filmmakers here. There's like so many like awesome filmmaker meetups that I go to here, and so much community within the like filmmakers that live here. So it's definitely an excellent place to get your career started. I think that you don't need to live here, and you can certainly like start your career elsewhere too. But I think you just have a lot of advantages here by like being able to walk out your door and like connect with people like face to face. But yeah, I don't think that like for me now, all of my shoots are in New York, and as I've like gone along too, like there are less shoots and more treatment writing and planning, and like that could be done anywhere, and like so I don't know. I don't think you need to live here, but it certainly helps like if you want to get your career started just by virtue of the people and places you have access to. And it also is a great place to shoot. So if you want to make like something really cheap, you can like take a model outside and go shoot like anywhere and it looks awesome. And like that's a huge benefit too.
Do you think that for someone who is has already been doing some work outside states, you could tell that a person has a voice, a person has a bit of a bit of substance to his portfolio, his body of work, and now he is about to start exploring different markets, as in a place to relocate to? What would you pick as your option number one, LA or New York for commercials?
I would say New York. I think LA. I've been to LA many times, but I don't like. I never have felt like I really like know what it would be like to live there all the time. So I couldn't like speak to like necessarily that it's like there's less community there. It's like it takes longer to do stuff, or like any of the things like I might think about LA from what I've heard about it. I just feel like New York is like so you can do so much more in a day here if you're trying to make connections because you're not driving around. You can walk from like a coffee meeting in Williamsburg to another meetup in Bushwick or something, and like it's pretty easy to do that. So I think that like if you're going to relocate somewhere, it seems like New York seems like a place that you can make those connections a little bit more easily that you're going to need to. But I don't know about LA too, because like I haven't lived there. I've flirted with the idea of like, oh, it would be cool to like try a year there. It seems like the market in LA is more about like narratives and series and stuff like that, which I'd love to be in that world too, and less about commercials. But I really couldn't say like for sure. The agency that I'm with is based in LA too. So I would feel like personally like some security if I ended up like deciding to move there, but like for somebody just going into it like without any contacts in a place, I think New York is like where it's at. And I've just had so many like positive experiences in the last couple of years, like starting to do my own work and collaborating with people that like, but I shot another fashion film 2 days ago, and like most of the people on the crew were people that reached out to me from YouTube or Instagram, which was crazy. And they were all like amazing. And I know that exists here and it's worked out really well for me. And I don't know, about that in other places. It could be true that LA would have that too, but I just know that New York has had so many like amazing collaborators and like filmmakers that I've had the chance to work with like really organically and easily.
Fair enough. Fair point. That's actually, if you could notice, that is something that I'm probably vetting for myself.
I figured. I mean, yeah, like I think that New York would be, and plus you see, it seemed like you were attracted to moving to Bangkok for a reason, which is like it seems like it's a bustling, like urban, like exciting place to be, and like New York is definitely that too. Whereas LA is, there's things about LA that I like really wish that I had in my life, like warm weather year round and like more opportunities to like be in nature and stuff like that. So it has its positives too, but I think like if you want like a bustling urban experience where you can like take the subway everywhere and like connect with like 4 different people in a day if you want to, New York is the place to be.
That is a very interesting point of view from somebody who is actually living that life there. I think it makes this statement a lot more believable. Next question is actually for the fellow YouTubers, I guess. For anyone who's actually planning to start this out. I've seen you are not really into like digital products. You're not monetizing any of your content. Is that correct?
I've had some ideas. It's just a little intimidating, I think, to like get started doing it because I don't have any like experience developing software, for example, or like um, it's just it's so funny. Like I had like one of the fashion films I made. There's like we just included like the like film burn that happens when you like start a take in some of the shots, and people were like, "How did you do that?" And I was like thinking to myself, this is like this is just what happens when you're shooting film. But then I was like, I asked someone like, would you buy this if I like made this on my own? And they were like, yeah, I would. And that's kind of when I was like, oh, I should like explore stuff like that. But I certainly see like the value in it. I just haven't figured out like what I guess like makes sense for me to develop. I would say like for your products are awesome. Like I use the treatment templates all the time. And like I feel like I haven't thought of the thing like that I could make that would add value for people like in the same way yet. But I do have some ideas that I'm starting to think about. I think just things like in terms of like helping filmmakers like be organized are like strong needs for a lot of people. And I think like the treatment template thing is just awesome because like we already are doing so much like free work that's so time consuming, and like to be able to use something that like takes a large amount of like that free work out of the equation and saves you so much time. It's literally probably given me like so many hours of my life back. So yeah, I don't know. I'm interested. I'm interested in digital products, but I don't have. I don't want to make like a LUT or something really. Like I think there's a lot of that stuff out there, and I don't know. I don't see the value necessarily in that per se. Like from what I would be able to create, I think there's some really great ones out there, but I'm not like technical like that to really make a LUT, for example, that would like blow people away. That doesn't already exist. So
Yeah, I can imagine. I was actually battling with that idea myself because I was thinking, no, there's quite a few people asking me in the comment section, like, yo, you should probably drop your first color grading product, power grade, or your LUT, or something of that nature. And I'm like, should I? My method of like grading my videos, like that's not something I've invented. That is something that I've learned from others, and I'm just implementing, tweaking things a little bit. But then again, the people are connecting with my content, and I feel like they would rather buy that product from me than from maybe somebody they don't really connect with. If I can make it at least good enough so that, they can get to my style of creating, or like at least the look of it, a couple clicks applying that power grade and that's it, then maybe it's worth some money. I don't know.
Something I've learned too, and I talked about this earlier, but like, understanding the idea that we have value in like what we are putting out there that we don't fully understand, if that makes sense. So like I'm like, oh well, I use a colorist for all my projects, and like that's like, yeah, cool. But like this person who's just getting started likes your stuff like on YouTube, and all they want to do is like drop a LUT on and get there. And that's a completely different category than like me being like, this is like thinking that everything needs to be so complicated. So I've started to like learn that the value in that as well. And that like, yes, there are a lot of alternatives out there for, in that case for like a LUT or something, but they're not looking for that. They're looking for yours, and recognizing your own sort of like individual value, I think is like important. So that's something I'm trying to like work on too. It's just like realizing like, oh, well, like they're here for you. So like maybe a LUT is something that would be cool to put out there. I don't know. But I'm like, I don't even know. I know like a decent amount about color grading, but I'm not like creating looks for my shoots or anything really. I'm kind of like, I don't know. So
because I feel like if it goes back to that idea of you not really realizing the potential value you can bring to somebody who's watching you or listening to you. And sometimes we get so caught up in the idea that we're not maybe good enough, or that this product is lame or whatever. And then all of a sudden you realize that from the perspective, especially that happens when you actually meet these people in real life. And so you meet them and you talk to them, and then you understand that they're not necessarily on exactly the same trajectory or level as you are currently. They just want to use your tools and apply them as quickly as possible and then get to where they want to be. So as simplest, the most what they call minimum viable offer is all you basically need. But I've actually seen some of the photo prints that you're selling. Does it sell well?
No.
Because it's not a tool, you know what I mean? It's an art.
Yes, for sure. That point is really important. It's like the people that buy those are like my friends, or like somebody that like, sometimes people will like ask me to put something on there that's like I don't have on the store already. But it's, yeah, I think you start to realize like, again, that like, yes, it's art, and like it's not solving any problems for anybody, like really. Like it's more just like those things are valuable because you've made them, and they're, you know, hopefully great for their own reasons. But it's more, you know, it's not a tool that people can use to like make their lives better like a LUT would be or something. So yeah, that they're up there. I just love the idea that they like will be in people's homes and be in print like at some point ever. So it's certainly not a big driver of income for me, but I love having them up there.
So I'm assuming the majority of your income comes from the commercial work. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. I only just started to. I've got my first sponsorship like a couple weeks ago, which has been cool. I mean, like I think the best thing about YouTube so far is just like seeing a path to like funding my own projects just enough to be able to make them and like not lose
Yeah.
money.
Right.
And that's so important to me because I think like as I've started my directing career, like I've done so many projects where I've like maybe like put a little extra money into them to make sure that they like came out a certain way, or like it's been like it's been challenging because there aren't so as many jobs, and like you spend a lot of time working to get some jobs and you don't get them, or like whatever. So I think having this like path towards a way to make some more money and add value to people's lives with YouTube is really exciting to me, because it just means that like I have like a little bit more control over this one aspect of my career that like it all depends on like how consistent I am and how many hours I put in. And that's what I like really disliked about commercial directing, was like it just isn't like that. Like you can like bang your head against the wall like trying to materialize clients and send out those like email blasts to agencies, or go on agency access and get the bootleg emails or whatever, and have your messages bounce and all types of stuff, and it's really frustrating. So I'm just really happy with YouTube as like a thing that like I can actually control and see like growth and like opportunities coming in because of the consistency and work that I'm putting into it.
Yeah, I've actually noticed a slight change in the market in general. And so I'm seeing that a lot of the commercials are not really commercials anymore. A lot of them are social media content nowadays. I've worked on a lot of the commercial sets where we are basically shooting these KOLs, these influencers. And so we try to make it look like a UGC content, if you know what that means.
Right. Yeah.
And so they're basically not really even posting those videos on the brand's social media channels. They're posting it through the influencers. And so what I'm seeing is a signal that, you know, the commercial industry is changing in general. So a lot of the consumers are not really interested in seeing content from brands. They're interested in seeing them from people they trust, people they follow. And what that tells me is that maybe it makes more sense to become that person, to own all of that distribution, to be the person coming up with ideas. So basically
Yeah.
replacing the agency, be the person who is a production company too, and being a person who is actually owning the distribution channels and posting stuff on behalf of the brand. Basically, it's a win-win situation if you think of it purely from a marketing standpoint, because
Yeah.
the brands are spending less money because everything is basically going through that one door, and you are making more money as basically you're fulfilling all these extra jobs
Yeah.
as a single entity.
I don't see a lot of people like, I agree with you 100%, and I don't see a lot of people thinking that way. And I'm like, we like literally like, what do we consume media on? We consume media on our phone. Like, that's what we're looking at all the time. We're not like sitting in front of a TV. Like, we watch, I suppose, like some TV for sure, but not, definitely not like turning on cable TV and like getting served like TVCs all the time. Like, that's ridiculous. That's like never happens. There's definitely still value in high production value commercials that are like, campaigns and stuff, but I think that people just need to get real about, like, we are looking at stuff on our phones all the time. Like, there is it's not like social media now is like the like throwaway part of the shoot. Like, that's, obviously you've done stuff like this. That is the shoot. Like, you shoot it vertical, and that's
Yeah.
the primary place that it lives, which now makes so much more sense with like TikTok and Reels and like how much people are consuming that sort of content. So, like, and then to your point about like becoming the influencer or whatever, like, yeah, like, it's once you get over like being on camera and like being the face of your own brand, it becomes, I'm just starting to experience it, but it's really gratifying to like have people like reach out to you and want to like collab, and like just seeing like, if I keep doing this, like I can grow this like channel and opportunities for myself, and I have like full control over it, and like I'm doing the same job basically. Like,
Yeah.
I haven't been approached by a huge brand or anything yet, but like, if I were like, if I were approached by like Converse or something eventually, and I made something with myself in it for them, I would literally be doing what I'm doing now. It's just I'm in it, and I'm maximizing my own like ability to participate in the commercial market. Like, and it goes back to like maybe some people romanticize like their commercials to be like their creative outlet, and they like refuse to participate in social, or like downplay it, or like hate on it. But like, we are literally just solving brand problems as commercial directors, and like, this is now the problem, and now it is social media. This is where it's got to live. And like, I don't know, like, I'm just like all about like getting real about that, and like trying to like make things that are like exciting, like make it exciting for myself to make stuff like that too.
I've been slowly overcoming this idea where I imagine myself being this avant-garde filmmaker who's only like places behind the camera and never in front of it. And now that I'm letting go of that idea, it feels so much better to live life in the modern day. I understand that this is a very interesting point in time where we live. I feel like it's better to be a bit more bold and a bit more accepting of the fact that you need to reconsider how you approach your work, because the skills are the same skills. They're not going to be very different, but how you approach it and the structure of it is a little different. I'm now getting more and more used to calling myself a YouTuber, which in the past to me it was always very cringe to do that, and I would never introduce myself. Hey, I'm Noor, I'm a YouTuber. And now that I'm in Bangkok, it's a new city to me, new people.
Yeah.
I'm meeting a lot of the new people, and whenever people ask me, I'm like, I'm just a YouTuber. I make YouTube content. Yeah, I'm getting slowly more comfortable with calling
Did
myself
you
that.
what was it like for you to make the first video, and like what was the response to the first video you made, and How did you feel about it when you? Because like I had the same like thing where I was like, oh, it's cringe, and honestly, like I haven't made that many videos yet, and when I watch them, I'm like, oh no, like, but I in my experience, like I've literally only gotten positive feedback, and it was so surprising for me. Like, did you feel the same way with your videos?
So very few people know this, but I used to run another channel prior to this. It was called Nurniaz, just Nurniaz, and it was in Russian language. So I started in my native language first. I thought it was gonna go well because it was very specific, very narrow niche, and I thought like niching down is a good idea back then. So that never took off. And so I guess I just iterated, and basically this new channel, this current channel that I have, it's only been a year that I'm running it. And so the pivot was to keep the structure of this videos exactly the same. So it's a breakdown. I'm trying to make it as inspiring as I can. So I'm trying to be very inclusive. I'm trying to be considerate of different people's different perspectives and making it believable that everybody can actually do this. Because, well, if you make your viewer believe in themselves, then they probably can achieve the same result. It's not rocket science, right? So
Right.
when I made my first video, it wasn't actually a full-blown tutorial or anything of particular value. It was just an intro to my channel. And the third video that I made, it was about making money in the commercial directing space,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that really took off. I guess I also got lucky, but I think I'm assuming that YouTube prefers new channels. That's like a very common concept that people discuss on the internet. It's not official, like YouTube has never admitted, or Google has never admitted that they prefer newer channels, but it feels
It
like
makes
it.
sense to me. It makes sense to me because it really encourages people to give it a shot. And like
Yeah.
that's the most exciting part about YouTube to me is like every time I post a video, I'm like, this could get a lot of views. Like it really feels like you have an opportunity to reach people on YouTube more than like I think any social media platform I've ever used. So I wouldn't be surprised if it prioritizes new accounts. And I do get like served like a pretty decent amount of like content from people that only have like 200 views on their video from like 3 days ago.
Yeah,
So
same. And it's their second video at most. Yeah, same.
yeah,
I've just realized that I've never actually asked you about your marital status, family situation. None of that. Are you? What's it like on your end?
I live with my girlfriend here in Brooklyn. We've been together for 3 years, and we're like exploring maybe moving out of the city in a year, or maybe trying to switch it up a little bit. But yeah, I live here with my girlfriend Nikki. She's a music therapist, which is a really cool job, and she is freelance music therapist. And what she does is she like uses music to like help people through a variety of different like some emotional, some clinical um, issues that they're having, and the age range, varies from some like really young people to some older people. So we're both kind of like freelance folks living here in New York City, and yeah, I mean it's great being with somebody who's so like supportive of my career because like we last summer I was gone for like almost the entire summer, and it wasn't easy for either of us, and I feel like it can be, being a freelance filmmaker can be challenging on personal relationships and like normal life milestones and stuff like that. And I try my best. I think one thing with YouTube that I've had to try to learn is like now that I have the ability to grind super hard and see results from it, like by virtue of how consistent I am, it's also really important to like take days off from it and like not stress super hard about like posting every week if it just doesn't make sense. So yeah, I try to have a healthy amount of downtime with her, and I think we're pretty good about it. Like her business sort of like she's working a little bit less during the summer, so we spend a lot of days like just hanging out together. Like we spent the whole day together yesterday, so we have a good balance, I would say.
Yeah, I was wondering, do you notice any like a seasonality in your own processes? Like, well, this summer is going to be a bit of a chill time, and then in the fall I'm going to go full on, like maximum effort. Or how does it work for you? Or is it
Like
pretty balanced out throughout the year?
I think that's something I'm always working on. I'm like always kind of like very motivated to like work, and then I mean, yeah, I guess sometimes I've had times where I've worked until burnout and then been like I need to like chill. Like that's what I want to get away from. I want to like for example, this week I shot a personal project a couple of days ago and then totally put everything away for a couple of days and spent time with Nikki and like really had like a really wonderful time just spending time only with her. We did some stuff for the holidays here, and we're having like our friends over tonight. And I'm mostly not like sitting in front of the like I'm like not editing anything that I shot. Like I'm like being like very compartmentalized about like turning it off for the most part. I'm trying to do more of that. I'm trying to like basically be smarter about my time and more consistent with the hours that I work, so that I'm protecting like quality time with Nikki and quality time with like my friends, and making sure that I'm doing that, which is like honestly, like, you know, as a freelance filmmaker, it can be like pretty hard to accomplish like setting time aside to do like real life things. So
Yeah.
I just, you know, before like I would be like, I'll just like today do whatever. And then like I'll get to like working on this treatment or a project whenever time I feel like doing it, or it would start at like noon or something. And now like I start at like 6:30 a.m. and I end at like 6 p.m. And then from 6 p.m. to 10:30, I'm like only doing like stuff with Nikki or like seeing a friend or something like that. And then on the weekends, like not doing anything at all.
Mm-hmm.
So whereas before I'd be like, oh, like do some stuff on Saturday, like work on this on Sunday. Now I'm like, I
Right.
pretty much try to have like a set schedule so that it protects like amounts of time where like Nikki and I have the most opportunity to like spend time with each other, or like if I know that like Nikki's parents live 45 minutes away and we go visit them all the time, like if I know that we're doing that, if we have an opportunity to do that on a certain day, I like protect that day as much as I can. So I think there's always an opportunity to improve upon the work-life balance, and like I am lucky enough, I guess, or unlucky, depending on how you look at it, to work a certain amount that like I'm not like, it's not like a pressing issue that I'm like always traveling and shooting like 100% of the time. So right now in my life, it's pretty easy to like, it's pretty possible to protect those times. And when it's not, it's a challenge, but like luckily like I feel so supported in my relationship that like I know that if I need to leave for like 2 months, like it's not going to be like the easiest thing, but at least like it's doable, and like we'll figure it out. So I think like it's, you have to first sort of create the trust and the like habits to show your partner and loved ones that you can like be there for them. And then when you do that, you do need somebody to be with somebody that can understand like when you need to sort of like go do a job for a
Yeah.
while.
Yeah. So for me, yeah, I've experienced that bit when I was directing more commercials. One of my busiest periods was probably end of last year and the beginning of this year, as in I had a lot of commercial gigs and the YouTube channel. And the problem with that was the fact that I was trying to find that perfect same balance day by day. So I was assuming that every day could look the same, the exact same on my calendar. But the problem with that is the fact that you're not a one-man band, so you depend on different people. You are in this machine that's constantly approached by clients, and you have to be on calls sometimes. And some unexpected things, they just find their way into your protected time, and I hated it. And then I realized it clicked at some point that there's a bit of a seasonality in the commercial game, at least in the markets that I've been operating in. Summers are a little bit easier, and winters are dead typically. So I knew for a fact that the fall and spring are going to be the busiest. And so those are the times when I'm like trying to communicate to my wife and the family that this is the time that I'm probably going to be unavailable, or at least not as available to you and to us as I can be during the summer and winter. And so summer and winter, I'm unbalanced towards and in the preference of my family. And spring and autumn, basically, I am unbalanced in the preference of work. So that's the type of balance that I
You're
found
so right
that
about
works.
like how you can't really schedule everything to your preference because of how collaborative like filmmaking is, and how like you're depending on so many people to like work on a project, and like dealing with their schedules for sure. That's like the one thing that drives me crazy is like you never really get that feeling of like doneness to your
Yeah.
day, because you're always like, this person like couldn't hop on a call, like shit, I gotta do that tomorrow, and like whatever. um, that's a huge thing for sure too. And then there's always like people, like things being added to your list throughout the day as well that are like it's almost like you start the day with a list and it's like a suggestion of what will probably happen, but it's not like you can't really plan like everything out to a T either, because there's so many
Yeah.
moving parts. I also think we have a lot of opportunity as freelance filmmakers and stuff. Like we can go make a bunch of money and then decide not to do stuff for, like, we can like take time off a lot more easily and have more freedom to do so than like other people. So I always try to be like grateful for that, because it can be crazy, but we also are just like awarded this amount of freedom that I think is like pretty uncommon. So
No, yeah, sometimes you have to be just reminded of that, I think. Do you make lists?
yeah, I do. And that's like, I make lists and then they like change all the time, and that's like one thing that frustrates me a little bit. But yeah, I think like, for example, like on Sunday night, I will I will like make sure that I have a list for Monday, which is a newer thing for me, but alongside the schedule, the like more strict schedule, like the list provides like an intention for the day that like I need, because I don't like to like wake up and like, if I don't have a production, I don't like to wake up and not know what I'm gonna do to like build what I'm working on, in terms of like my career and brand or whatever. So I need the list, because then I can look at it and be like, okay, this is like a guide for what tomorrow will look like, but it's not necessarily like the Bible for what I'm gonna do. But I need to have some direction. I also think another thing I wanted to mention was just like exercise is, in my opinion, like super, super important. And like, not like if you're working on a treatment or something, like leaving the house for a period of time and getting outside, and getting some sun, or just having like healthy habits, as another sort of like protection, I think is super important. Like I think if you sit inside all day working on treatments or whatever, you're gonna go insane. So I think that I love lists, and I love like running. I'm big in running, and that stuff is super important just for your mental health.
Yeah, I can definitely agree on both points. So I have this Notion template that I've started using about a year ago. and it's got different days, and so it's like tick boxes for each day, Monday to like Sunday. Typically what I would do is also on the weekend I would sit and plan out the week as much as I can, and I would put different tasks for different days, so I would know that on the calendar these are the important days.
Yeah.
But I also find myself very often that some of the miscellaneous tasks are constantly being pushed down.
Oh, for sure. I had like a large number of like agency contacts. I was like, I'm going to email all these people. And I remember just sliding that over and over and over, like weeks and weeks, because I was just like, I don't know, it didn't seem like the most potentially fruitful activity necessarily, but so yeah, I know what you mean. But yes, setting a schedule and a list is like, what other business like doesn't have like a calendar of like goals and things? Like you have to, like we're little businesses, right? So it's like doesn't make any sense not to do that to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Because otherwise you don't have a control over your life and somebody else does then. All of these random
like,
events start controlling your...
That's why we're freelance, is we wanted to have that control. So you have to, that's the thing. Like that's what I always have to tell myself is like, if I don't take control of this, then eventually I'll be working for someone else. And like the last thing I really want to do is be working for someone else like all the time. I want to work for myself and choose the projects I want to do, and that's like my goal. So yeah, like you just have to put in the sort of work that, like the work that doesn't have a clear outcome, like is the most important work, I think. And that like can be like starting YouTube or like writing a short film or like whatever. But that's the stuff that like really moves the needle, I think.
Despite it being very scary at times, it's the best things are waiting for you on the other side of fear, as they say. So that's very important for people, especially I would say young people, to realize, because as you mature, that's something inevitable. You will feel pain enough times to just get it at a certain point. Yeah, inaction will lead you nowhere. That's a very good wrapping point, which leads me to my last question. What
Yeah.
is next for you? What do you think the future holds for you?
Since signing with the agency that I'm with now, they're called Early Morning Riot. They're awesome. I've been pitching on more, treating on more projects, and I'm working on one now that should hopefully be awarded next week. Fingers crossed. So just like doing the reps of writing treatments and pitching and shooting more. I think for me, I don't have control necessarily of how well that's, like how consistently I will be getting opportunities. I hope that it will be a lot, and it has been pretty good this year, so I'm hoping that continues. What I do have control over is just making my own stuff and continuing to like share my experiences on YouTube. So definitely more YouTube. I'm trying to do a video a week, which is insanely hard for me right now. I watched a lot of YouTube over COVID, and I got really into like cooking. So I watched a lot of cooking YouTube and like food YouTube YouTubers. So I would kind of like be interested in like how do they create this content, and like listening to people talk about like batching the content out and shooting it all at once and then like scheduling it. I'm like, that makes so much sense. I'm having a hard time like coming up with the ideas and writing the scripts and like getting like it's a lot, it's a kind of a grind. So I'd like to like get better at like being consistent with it, and like I'm just like blown away at like how well it's gone with my like sort of limited output so far. So I'm really excited to like continue with that. I want to do more videos that are like outside of like production breakdowns, which might be like I just did a video with my friend who's a colorist, and we did like an interview kind of like this.
That was a great one, yeah.
That are like with people that have specialized jobs that like should be highlighted more, in my opinion, and that like I think people that are not at the level to like have access to those kinds of collaborators yet would be interested in hearing about. So yeah, like I don't know. I want to find more people like here in New York that I can focus on and like actually visit and work with. So I just want to try some different formats and see what else works, because it, I think, is sort of hard to continue doing as many production breakdowns without running out of productions to break down.
Right.
But yeah, I think I'm just excited to do more YouTube stuff. That feels like the thing that's like the most within my control to consistently put out. And then I'm hoping that like my exposure to people through doing that will like lead to other opportunities too, to like make commercials or work with brands and stuff like that. So it's so weird how like quickly, like I'm not saying that every opportunity is amazing yet, but just the interest has been flattering. And so yeah, more, and then just more personal projects for sure. And now I feel like I'm in a groove here where like I don't feel so self-conscious about like asking people to collaborate with me in the city. And like, you know, a lot of people that like come on to like gaff my projects or like whatever, they're like excited about the creative and excited about doing something that like is outside of like the normal like commercial or corporate videos or whatever that they do. So I'm finding like my network of people that are down to like collaborate, and it's making it easier to like make personal work too. So I'm really excited to continue doing that.
That's amazing. Well, I'm very happy to hear that you are now venturing off to this entrepreneurial path. That is very exciting all the time to hear from other creators too. And I wish you best of luck with that endeavor. And I'm hoping to see a lot more of your personal projects. Not necessarily spec work. Let's just make films, bro.
Pretty much. Learned my lesson there.
I'm hoping to be making some of that myself as well here. And so with this new backdrop of Bangkok, I'm hoping that will be somewhat inspiring to fuel my creativity. New York seems to be a very interesting place, certainly more interesting by the end of this call than it was at the beginning of this call to me personally. I'm hoping to visit someday. And man, let's just keep creating.
Yeah, you got to come out here, man.